It's never a doubt. Cue the sarcasm, but the boys got the job done. How we doing, everybody? It's Wardy here, and we're back at it with the latest live edition of our New York Metropolitan postgame show, presented here by SeatGeek and BetUS, but a little bit more on them later on in this show, folks, because we have a walk-off victory to get into here on this Memorial Day. And first and foremost, I want to say my thoughts and prayers and condolences are to everyone who, of course, is a fallen hero for this country. Today is a very important day across the land. I'm very aware of that, and I just can't thank everyone enough who have not only served or actively serving, and obviously the ones who made the greatest sacrifice for this great nation. But guys, in today's post-game show, we have to get into the New York Mets getting absolutely carved up left, right, and center. But yeah, you guessed it, Adrian Houser. That schmuck a year ago was batting practice. Now he goes over 6 shutty against this team. Thankfully, in the end, the baseball gods knew that even the White Sox were, of course, the White Sox, and the boys needed to get this Game 1 victory after securing the series victory just a night ago against the LA Dodgers. I mean, are we really going to drop the first game of a 3-game set against the Southside Chicago effing White Sox after winning 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers? I don't care. That's a 4 o'clock game. I don't care if you don't love starting your game this early on a Monday. The boys need to show up, and they were kind of lifeless for a good portion of this matchup. But folks, it ain't about how you start, it's about how you finish. I think that goes in direct hand, obviously, with a course of a 162 for this amazing Mets team, because they might not be in sole possession of first right now, but they got a lot of baseball to be had to suggest that they may in fact find themselves getting there, and hopefully sooner rather than later. We're going to talk about how good Klay Holmes looked in today's outing, how much of a schmuck the umpire yet again was. Another day that ends in Y, where the umpire is looking like Helen Keller because they cannot make the proper strike calls. We're going to break down everything to a T. Innings 1 through 9 in this matchup, everybody. But first and foremost, what I want to see is you guys spamming those W's as you first chime in live on a replay. That really does mean a lot, guys. Continue to spam them right now. And all of our replay viewers, again, in the comments down below, I want to see those W's spammed and your biggest takeaway from tonight's 2-1 victory, this time in a walk-off fashion, as Francisco Lindor now has 3 of the Mets' first 5 walk-off victories this season. And entering today's ball game, folks, while Lindor did not walk this one off in a bomb that would have been even more electric, that really felt like it would have been a grand slam a couple months later as we get deeper into summer. But for today, we deal with the sac fly, and that's fine. But mind you, the past 24 games that Francisco Lindor has homered in, the Mets have won pretty good. So hopefully we see a Lindor bomb on this homestand, either against Southside Chicago and the White Sox, or there against the bottom feeder Colorado Rockies. The Mets need to take advantage of their strength of schedule right now, or rather lack thereof on the strength part, before they have their biggest series yet. Outside this past couple days, they have a huge West Coast trip beginning the week of June there, right around the corner, and that is going to be in LA for a 4-game set against those Dodgers. All the more reason for this Mets team to come out guns a-blazing all week long here between not only the White Sox, but certainly the Rockies, and get themselves more in the win column. The Mets have now won 3 consecutive games. This comes after dropping 6 of their past previous 8, and which went in direct hand as to why they fell to first place there in first. But the good news, folks, is a lot of baseball to be had. Juan Soto is making the proper adjustments. Pete Alonso is looking more like the guy that we saw a month ago versus the past couple weeks, what we've seen over the past 24 hours, and you just need to win at the end of the game. You know, we know the saying plenty there, just win, baby. So let's get into this one. Scott, thank you so much for the $2 holla. Scott says, where would we be without Tyrone Taylor? TT, as we love to call him, Tyrone Taylor with another electric game for this Mets team. And that's an exactly great question to ask everybody. Where would this Mets team be without Tyrone Taylor? I couldn't agree more. We're going to highlight plenty here on Tyrone and tonight's show, folks. How we doing, everybody? Chiming in. The Mets are now 20-6 at home. That is correct, RMX. Good for the best record among any eligible team there in Major League Baseball, not just out of the National League. We also see here Mario, my man, with the $5 holla. Love you, Mario. Thank you so much for that. Mario states, we beat the guy from Fortnite yesterday. Walk-off dub today. Lindor does better with my girl than his Ain't No Val. And that actually is true. He does do better with my girl. But I do love that his second song is, ain't no valley, ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough from keeping me from getting to you, baby. I was bopping that at the club yesterday. And yes, you heard that correctly. Wardy was having himself a night. And then I saw that the game started at 4 today. I thought it was a night game. I was like, oh no. But we're here now. That's all that matters, baby. And I want to give a huge shout shout out as well to my man Antonio's father. Antonio's dad, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm 90% certain I believe I remember what your name is, but if I say it wrong right now, I apologize. But if your name is in fact Walter, I hope you're having a fantastic birthday right now, and thank you so much for watching. Not only is it my girl's birthday today that I'm so grateful for to have her and have everything that she's impacted my life with, but I know it's also a birthday of a friend that I just became friends with a couple days ago there at the Mets game itself. So shout out to Antonio's dad. If your name's Walter, absolutely love it. If I missed it, if I'm completely wrong, I apologize, but I know who you are and I appreciate you watching greatly. Let's go up the list here. Julia Hawkins, how we doing? Daniel Caps, great member. Trenton Wright, great member. Aaron Jacobs, great member. Chad O'Neill, great member. Darren, great member. How we doing? Geraldo Morales, love the name, great member. Kevin King, how we doing? Great member. Leo, great member. Kitch, great member. Juan Diaz, great member. Yoshima with the $2 haul. Love you, Yoshima. Be on the lookout for a message from me later today as well. Thank God the White Sox suck. Happy Memorial Day. Appreciate the donation, Yoshima. Hope all's well on your front. Sean MD, great member. Vertical Rivera, great member. D-Mac, great member. Going up the list here. Steve Lawn, great member. My goodness, everyone's popping out of the memberships today. Love to see it. Daniel Caps, how we doing? RZ, was great seeing you at the Mets game the other day there. Everyone coming in live on a replay. Hit that like and subscribe as you chime in, folks. And let's get on to breaking down what's that so much about this ball game. The show doesn't start until Wardy starts calling us out by name. Yes, you exactly know that's how the party rolls here, baby. The same way the party's about to roll with something we didn't get a chance to do yesterday just because I didn't have it set up. But don't worry, we got it set up today, folks. We got to let it rip. After every big victory throughout the course of the 162, we now got to let it rip with the one, the only, the absolutely official WardyNYM post-game jingle. Have yourself a Monday, baby. Let's get it. Shout out to my guys, Greg and Jordan, as always, with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. We bopped to that bad boy after every victory throughout the course of the 162. And I also got to say, guys, I did see, of course we had our hiccups here, guys. It isn't a true WardyNYM post-game show unless we have a jump scare for you guys. When I go back to my main slide, I show you guys right there. Bam, it's a little bit of a jump scare. I apologize. I don't mean that purposely. I just always manage to mess at least one thing out. So, one thing up. So again, thank you guys so much for chiming in. We appreciate you greatly, everybody. How we doing? Bobby G, John, great members for chiming in as well. Frankie, you are out of rhythm. I'm always out of rhythm. If you guys want to know the truth as to why I'm out of rhythm, I'll tell you right now. I'm out of rhythm because over half the time when I play the jingle, I don't hear it nearly as well as you guys do. It comes out perfectly in the audio for you guys, but it comes out sporadic when I listen to it. Half the time, I don't even really hear it in its entirety. I just hear snippets of it, and I kind of get somewhat in sync. That's why I just do a very simple kind of bop left to right, and that's about it because, again, I am a little all over the place, and that's okay. The Mets offense was all over the place today, but thankfully that did not prevent them from still winning a ball game against the absolute bottom feeder Chicago White Sox. Hope, thank you so much for the $2 haul. Hope says, and they lost this game, do you rant? Of course I rant. Are you kidding me? Especially if the Mets lost where they got shut out. I would have went in on how Adrian Hauser goes roughly 7 shutty, and the boys can't even put in one measly effing run. It would have been exactly that for the next number of how many minutes. But we will still get into the continued notion of the Mets not being able to hit a lick if it smacked them across the face that we call runners in scoring position. So don't you worry game with it, because there certainly was a balance of both. Zach, thank you so much for the $2 haul. Zach states, Mets pitching now down to 2.78. Next lowest is 310 there, that being the Kansas City Royals. Love to see it, Zach. Thank you so much for that donation. I appreciate that. And hopefully this pitching staff can continue to carry the way that it has so brilliantly so far this season. Frankie Montas is on rehab. Shamanai is going to be pitching a bullpen this Thursday, everybody. We got some updates I'll share with you guys more tomorrow than today for our usual Mets updates video. So so be on the lookout for that. Aaron, thank you so much for the donation. My prediction of Torrens taking Alvi at bats is here. To a degree, yes, but this went more in hand with Alvarez coming in there in his final at bat. And guys, if it isn't for Francisco Alvarez, the Mets don't win this ball game. So while you might not love Alvi's at bats lately, respectfully, zip it right now. Who got the party started in the bottom of the 8th inning? It's Francisco Alvarez, not only ripping a single, but pulling a single. Something that he has not done much this year, as he's really went center and opposite field trying to spread that, but also by spreading the wealth, he has eliminated the power a bit in doing so. Alvarez gets on there with that leadoff single that sets the stage for a true pinch run opportunity for Luis Angel Acuna. And Acuna, the speed demon, Acuna Matata making something happen. And without that duo there that we saw between Alvarez and then Acuna, again, the Mets do not win this ball game. So I understand. I 100% agree Torrens is swinging the bat better right now. But I'm telling you guys, you're still going to see a healthy balance of the two playing. I am curious to see if Torrens really outweighs Alvarez in the sense of offensive output, that they do have Torrens more consistently starting 2 games out of 3, but I just don't see it happening. I really don't. We'll see what happens, though, everybody. So, again, thank you guys. Come on, come all. Let's see. Trenton with the donation. Trenton with the $2 holla states the following, where the jingle honestly made my day never change. Oh, I love to see that. Love to hear that, Trenton. Thank you so much. I don't know what it is about the Houdini magic that is not only what we saw yesterday and Mets pitching doing a fantastic job working out of jams the way that they always do, but today it's also that magic, the jingle. Again, it courses through your veins. You get the chills down your body, and you're saying to yourself, I thought I hated it, now I love it, and now I can't live a life without it. I think that goes through a lot of other things in life, but I digress, everybody. Let's get into what we're breaking down in tonight's 2-1 walk-off victory, because as you guys can see the following right here, the pitching was cooking. Klay Holmes goes roughly 6 innings of 1-run ball, and I'll ask you guys later on your 1 through 10 grades, so start to marinate the thought process now. How you feeling on the grade front? Shout out to the umpire, because yet again, another day where Blue decides that, oh, we spent money to come to the ballpark to watch you, and not the actual guys on the mound, because if it wasn't for Blue being the absolute blind bat that he was, the Mets would have had Klay Holmes with a strong 6 innings of work today, yet he got absolutely screwed, and I'll expand more on that here shortly. Budo, give credit where credit's due, a little shaky, but didn't allow a run when Buddy entered that inning there with bases juiced, when, mind you, we're at least 2 on, when Budo entering today's game has allowed 6 out of the 8 inherited runners that he's had on base actually score. So huge news to see that not happen. Huascar Brosban, the dog that he is. Look, I understand it just won out. I understand it wasn't the easiest out, but Jose Castillo now has pitched 3 scoreless innings for the Mets. This is the same man that was acquired by the Mets with an 11 ERA this year in a very small sample size. And the same man that David Stearns picked up knowing that, and actually, let me turn off the TV behind me. I'm going to get copyright somehow. My big head can only cover so much. Getting back to it, we see this is the same Castillo who hasn't really done anything at the major league level that's been quality, that's been good in both sample and results since 2018. And David Stearns really looked at him and said, you're 6'6" and have pitches I like. Yeah, you're coming in the bullpen. Jesus Cabrera, you're out of here, buddy. We're keeping Castillo. David Stearns has a type, and one of his types that he loves is guys that know how to throw the S's, and the S's consist of sinkers, splitties, sliders, sweepers. If you fall in the 1 through 4, multiple of those 4 pitch category, then there's a greater likelihood that you're going to land in this Mets bullpen or rotation at some point in the near future. We also saw Edwin Sugar Diaz with another fantastic outing. Edwin has not only been tremendous in save situations this season, but now in the case of the Mets today, in a non-save situation, not a problem there outside of allowing one guy to get on with a walk, because Edwin Diaz loves to live dangerously. I think we figured out by now that he needs to allow a runner to get on base first in order for himself to get in the groove. It's almost like he needs that kind of kick in the ass to be like, all right, you have a little pressure on. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to escape the jam this time? And Edwin's like, by being one of the best relievers in the National League, and then he blows 97 and 99 past you. Slider touching the upper 80s there that he's swinging on a down and away, doing your best Pete Alonso first half 2024 impression. If you know, you know. But that's what you got on the pitching now. We're going to talk more about that. Same thing with the hitting. This is not how the ball game started. It's how it ended, because we did see some guys, including Luis Angel Acuna, come in later in this ball game there after he not initially started the ball game. We also saw trends come in towards the end as well, so we're going to talk about that, everybody. But that's what we got on the Mets pitching and the offense initially in this one. So now let's get back to the main slide here, and let's answer a couple donations and now break down what was a far from sexy ball game, but a win is a win, and that's the most important thing in the end. Darren, great member of 4 months says Mets won with productive outs. You damn right they did. And they had situational hitting. It's almost like Luis Angel Acuna again makes a difference every time out there. I'm not saying I know what I'm talking about, but in the case of this, I know what I'm talking about. That's why Acuna can't go anywhere. I don't care what anyone says. Scott with the $5. Thank you, Scott. Scott states the following. Wardy, are you worried about Acuna not getting enough reps? Great question. If we only use him as a late inning replacement since his bat has cooled off, I will get to that more when we talk about Acuna later on this ball game. Great question, though, Scott, that I'm going to take a rain check on and get back to in a couple minutes. Dave with a $5 holla states the following. Great pitching, great defense, and man hitting. Nice win, but I'm still calling for the hitting coaches to be fired. Dave, you're just one of thousands of Mets fans. I think Eric Chavez did a better job as a player than he did trying to orchestrate what does it mean to actually be a hitting coach for Francisco Lindor and this Mets team. Because this past offseason, we heard Lindor pretty much say, buddy, you got to be involved. You got to be doing things more than what you're doing. This is the same Eric Chavez that's famously known for saying, don't care about the numbers. Don't focus on your slugging or how many home runs you hit and all this nonsense. And I understand you don't want to be over analytical and then find yourself really being anal about how your results are going to be. But at the same time, there needs to be a balance by actually emphasizing the results and how you got there versus viewing everything as if it's lady luck. Because between Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, while the Mets have had a roster that has been on paper quality entering this season, and to a degree last year when they started rallying get things right, the one commonality again has been the Mets lackadaisical hitting with runners in scoring position in certain areas. And we don't have Mr. Gene Jose Iglesias to clutch up the way they did last year for this Mets offense, nor are we going to expect to lean on Lindor every single time the way that he certainly was a standout for the Mets today and this victory. Regardless on where you fall and stand on that topic, everybody, the one commonality is that the Mets are not going to get where we want them to be. They stay steady with the numbers right now, only trailing the Texas Rangers and the Pittsburgh Pirates for the lowest OPS in the month of May with runners in scoring position, or entering today's game with only the Pittsburgh Pirates and, yes, the Colorado Rockies with the worst team batting averages with runners in scoring position, especially out of the National League. So I don't want to hear this nonsense on, oh yeah, they're going to find their groove, they're going to figure it out. Even when they find their groove and figure it out, they're probably not going to hit nearly as high of a peak as they could because they don't have proper coaching to a degree. And I don't hate Eric Chavez. That's a frustrating thing. I have such a love-hate relationship with him. Jeremy Barnes, I'm a little bit more, I don't really know how to evaluate him just because I don't know him too well. But these are two guys that, again, mind you, not every team has two hitting coaches, but the Mets insist on having a hitting coach and a co-hitting coach. And what that has resulted in has still been bottom feeder numbers 2 months in the season for a team on paper that should easily be one of the best offenses, not just the National League, but in Major League Baseball this season. And they have all the expected numbers to tell you and insinuate and say, yeah, they're going to break out, but here's the problem. What is it going to be? We can't just go with this nonsense of shoulda, coulda, woulda, or it's going to happen then, or it's going to be this week, or it's going to be next week. No. Why can't it be now? Why can't it be against the jaw? And part of my French, kiddos, put on the earmuffs. So I'll give you a Mississippi count. 3, 2, 1. Ready? 3 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi. Why the fuck can this Mets team not be able to do this against the effing Chicago White Sox? Why can't they do it against the Colorado Rockies, right? So they play up to competition a lot of the times, in the case of the Dodgers to a degree, even though that I will say it was a fairly underwhelming series, all things considered still, to an extent. There were some good wins and also some okay, not the best baseball being played from both sides, but a win's a win. We'll take that series victory for what is. Then you get in these other games where, again, you're playing bottom feeders and the Mets are making Adrian Hauser look like he's effing Greg Maddux out here. Like, what are we doing? But again, I digress. Thank you so much for the donations, everybody. I appreciate that a lot. One final one I'll get to. Hope says if the Mets lose and get swept, parental advisory. Yes. 1,000%. But I warn you guys now, I used to not be as good with the kiddos in the past. I used to just be F-bombing away. But now we've learned, especially now that I'm a dad myself, I got to make sure that I'm at least giving the warning and being like, kiddos, get out of here. You got a couple seconds, run and put on the earmuffs, do something. But all right, guys, enough of me rambling more than I typically do. We're 20 minutes into the show and I haven't said an effing word about what's happened in my innings. So I'm a terrible host right now and I apologize for that. Let me correct myself and get this party started for each and every one of you as it began there that we saw in the first inning between the Mets and the White Sox. Now, like I said, a far from sexy ball game for this Mets team that began there in the first that we saw Chase Mydroth, who I'd be lying if I said I had any clue who this guy was entering the series, and that's not a slight on him. I just don't focus on the White Sox because they used to be my AL team, for those that don't know. When Luis Robert first broke on the scene, when Eloy Jimenez was first called up when we saw the Yomankata trade first happen with Chris Sale and the Red Sox and the White Sox, Sox on Sox crime. And we saw Lucas Giolito throwing no-nos. You saw James McCann actually being a decent catcher. Remember that? I bet you don't, Mets fans. But he was solid for a year and a half before entering this Mets organization. That was the White Sox team that I was becoming a casual fan of out of the American League to lock in more on American League games 1 and 2. I liked the core group that they were building. But a core group that had endless potential fell flat on its face, and that has everything to do with ownership down. Now, the same White Sox team entered today's game with 17 victories to 37 losses. 20 games below 500 there, or right around, but at least they are still on a better pace to a degree than what they were last season, even though it's not by a drastic amount. Wolven Abel, who I think is actually a pretty nice hire for them at manager. The Mets actually interviewed him in years past for manager. For those that don't know, Wolven Abel, very smart and young, savvy mind across Major League Baseball. But either way, the Wardy tangent continues, and after Chase gets on with a walk, Mike Tauchman grounds out. Then we see Miggy Vargas ground out, and then Andrew Benintendi ground out. Easy 3 work of ground out for Mr. Klay Holmes, and he gets out of leading that first man to get on with a walk. We would then see in the bottom of that same inning, everybody, after the first out, which, yes, you guessed, is by yet again a ground out, we would see then the first man get on board for the Mets, and that is Brandon Nimmo banging into the 2-hole today, folks. Now, guys, do you remember when Brandon Nimmo thrived in the top 3 of the Mets lineup? Because I know I did. It's nice to see Brandon Nimmo in the 2-hole today and taking advantage of the opportunities given to him. Him banging in the 3-hole today, as we saw Vientos was off the bench because Jared Young got the start at DH. Another day, another dollar where Jared Young does nothing for the Mets at the DH position, as we now inch so closer to potentially seeing a Ronnie Mauricio call up there in that same role. I'm just saying, guys, why the hell are we going to waste away Jared Young for an easy quick out when we at least could have a guy batting from the left side of the plate that can torch a baseball 110 miles per hour and go right into the gap and get in second base, again, with his eyes closed. I understand he might swing and miss a lot, but I'd rather see a young man swing and miss a lot and give us some power and boom or bust versus Jared Young, who's an absolute lock for an out in his first 3 games as a New York Met. Nothing personal, Jared, but listen, you're not my guy. You got to become my guy. Go out there and prove it if you're going to play, because right now you're doing anything but in a limited sample size. Brandon Nimmo, though, again, ripped that 10th double this season for him that you love to see. Afterwards, we would see Juan Soto ground out and Pete Alonso ground out. So you're telling me that, what, 5 of the last 6 outs in this ball game between the Mets and the White Sox are all via ground out. Yes, that is in fact the reality that we find ourselves in, everybody. And as we continue on from here and this 2-1 walk-off victory for the Amazons, we would see in the bottom of the second, atop the second, part of my French there, shame on me, we see Luis Robert, future New York Met by the MLB trade deadline, if you know, you know. He flies out. Mr. Palacio strikes out. And then we see Edgar Cuero there ground out, and that does it there for the second. At the bottom of the second, the Mets go down in order. Brett the Hitman Beatty got the start today at hot corner. He got nothing going, sadly, as he struck out. And then Tyrone Taylor struck out as well for back-to-back Ks. In the third, we would see another nice 1-2-3 inning there from Mr., yes, you guessed it, Klay Holmes, who I have a lot of positives to say about today, folks. But Klay, we saw there in the top of the third, get a strikeout on Sosa, not Sammy. Ground out on Josh Rojas, who's really fallen from grace after being once a kind of heralded prospect and just young player for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Went to Seattle, where all bats go to die, and now he's on the White Sox. So again, when it gets bad, it gets worse, and now we are here in Southside. Chase with a ground out, and that does it for the third, everybody. In the bottom of the third, we see the Mets go down in order, where 2 out of the 3 outs are, yes, you guessed it, via ground out. Adrian Hauser, the known sinker baller, the schmuck that the Mets thought would be kind of to a degree what Klay Holmes has been for them this year, but obviously just not as much high upside. I mean, they really envisioned Adrian Hauser as more of a back-end starter last year, but due to injury, they had to call upon him in greater situations that they initially wanted themselves. And then we saw, obviously, Adrian Hauser be pretty much batting practice. And the last team memory we have as Adrian Hauser as a New York Met is him giving up an absolute tank to Jesse Winker on the 11 o'clock game no one asked for on 4th of July, where the Mets lost 1-0 because no one was awake yet. No one could hit a lick, and color me shocked, Jesse Winker, who would betray the Mets just a couple weeks from that actual game on 4th of July, literally less than right around a month later, not even gets traded to the Mets, and Adrian Hauser obviously was DFA'd by the Mets not long after that ball game. But as we continue on from here, everybody, the Mets go down in order as Adrian Hauser is feeling himself touching 96 on the gun. And honestly, I looked at my TV and I just yelled F you at Hauser because I'm like, where the hell was this, buddy? Of course, you're in the no pressure cooker situation in Southside, and now you want to have your little villain arc. Oh, how could they cut me after I pitched like absolute shit for the vast majority of the time I was here? I just can't comprehend it. How could the Mets do such a thing? Oh, I got to prove them wrong. This is why you're on the White Sox, and you just signed, but I digress. Mike Tauchman gets on there with a walk to begin that we would see there in the 4th. We would also see Miggy Vargas get on with his 13th double of the year, so Vargas being productive for the LA Dodgers. And I say LA Dodgers because it feels like he's still in LA. I haven't really talked about Vargas much since he's landed with the White Sox, but he was actually part of that 3-team trade, the deadline last year between the Dodgers, the White Sox, and the Cardinals. And Vargas got sent there to the White Sox. Michael Kopech, the stud reliever, went to LA. Tommy Edman went to LA from St. Louis when he was still injured. And then you saw Eric Fetty go from the White Sox to the Cardinals. Who won that trade far and away since then? Obviously, it's the LA Dodgers. Benintendi, though, gets the offense started in this ballgame, and the only offense here for the Chicago White Sox, as they made the Mets look like the absolute best team in baseball with runners in scoring position in comparison. White Sox were no better, but they did get a sac fly from Andrew Benintendi, the largest contract in team history, as Benintendi is currently batting, mind you, 244 with a 685 OPS. But I guess I can't talk too much shit because Juan Soto's not even at 800 OPS, and his contract is a decent amount bigger. It's like how many? It's like almost $700 million more than Benintendi's. It's actually unbelievably stupid. Then we saw Robert, everybody. Reaches on the fielder's choice. And then after Robert reaches on the fielder's choice, we would see him advance to second base there on a balk because of the disengagement yet again there by Klay Holmes. Thankfully, Palacio grounds out, and that does it there for the 4th. Then at the bottom of the 4th, everybody, the Mets go down in order because Adrian Hauser just has their number for whatever reason, as Juan Soto was the lone strikeout of said inning. In the 5th inning, we would see Edgar Cuero rip his 6th double of the season. Then Sosa on with a ground out, or not on, but he's out rather with a ground out. Rojas there would have called strike 3, and Chase grounds out, and that does it for another clean inning of work there for Klay Holmes, our stud starter. And listen, guys, I'm not trying to flex too much, but I did say heading into the season, and I said this going back to the offseason, that I do think Klay Holmes could be an all-star for the Mets this year, and that's my bold take. And I'm telling you right now, as long as Klay Holmes can get some more outings where he actually gives the Mets 6+ innings versus just under 6, where the umpire screwed by you today. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just trying to make it known here that in the point of Klay Holmes, he absolutely has potential to be an all-star pitcher this year. I'm really happy to see him blossom the way they have so far the first 2 months of the season. Dave, love you so much, Dave. With the $5 holla, Dave Kaplan states the following: most of the game I was yelling Adrian effing Hauser. Reinsford's team sucks. Of course it does. Couldn't happen to a better guy. Voted against Steve Cohen. He did vote against Steve Cohen. Him, Artie Moreno, step right up and meet the biggest schmucks who call owners in Major League Baseball. Not only did they not want the richest man in North American sports to own the New York Mets, but they also want to make sure that their teams could continue to be very lackadaisical in their spending. And the worst part is that the Angels and Artie Moreno, they even do spend. They do spend decent money sometimes each and every offseason, but they don't know where the fuck to allocate it. Pardon my French again. Sorry, kiddos, earmuffs, a little too late. I apologize, but the point is that, oh my God, like imagine pushing Billy Epler aside when he's a newly crowned GM for your team, and this is after you get Shohei Ohtani or so, right around there, and you mean to tell me that Billy wants to hold the money. He wants to wait another year after they swung and missed on Garrett Cole and Zach Wheeler there in the 2019, entering the 2020 offseason, or around that area. I know it's around that time. And Artie Moreno literally pushes Epler aside and signs the worst contract in Major League Baseball's history. That being, and the oh-so satisfied, the oh-so charismatic, the oh-so enthusiastic Anthony Rendon, who's counting his days, his dollars, his paychecks, as he's never going to play more than probably 20 games with the Angels in his entire career. Dave, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. That is the latest Wardy tangent for you guys. I apologize. Nicholas says, have a laugh with me real quick. I joked around with my girlfriend's dad today. Big Yankees fan. Well, that's red flag number one. Good thing you got in the family while you did. Though the Mets would allow Hauser to submit his Cy Young bid. That's good. That is great. I love that. Thank you so much for chiming in, my man. I appreciate that. Paula, how you doing? Lewis, how we doing? D, how we doing? Everybody chiming in the chat. Jose Lopez Moya, love you, baby. D-Mac, Juan Diaz, Julia Hawkins, great member. Alvin, you guys are kind. Appreciate you all. PB9, great member. You guys are electric. But let's get back to breaking down this ball game, shall we? Because as we would see the Mets go down in order in the 5th, that sets the stage where in the 6th inning, Andrew Benintendi, who does have an RBI on the day, rips himself a base knock. Luis Robert, future New York Met, rips himself a single as well. And then Robert goes on to steal his MLB leading 21st bag of the year, guys. So For simple breakdown, for those that don't know who Luis Robert is what Jose Siri, I think, wishes he could be when Robert is truly right. Robert's batting just under the Mendoza line right now. He's had a horrendous season, but he's on an uninspired baseball club that gives him no reason to ever be motivated ever again. And he's just the type of young player where whether you agree or disagree with it, he has the mental maturity to the point that as long as he's on a bad team, it's going to impact how he feels and how he even shows up to work. And I understand that to a degree. No one loves to show up for work when they certainly don't enjoy their job, but they have to because they're contractually obligated and they need to keep things afloat. It's not easy all the time. You're not going to carry yourself as much as you otherwise should. So Robert, color me shocked, buddies in Southside, rotting away. Well, he's only 26, 27 years of age, 3 years left of control in his contract, is an absolute speed demon, and has the offensive upside that would blow through anything that I firmly believe Jose Siri would do at his best with this Mets team. And I like Jose Siri a lot, and we're going to talk about Siri in tomorrow's video, so be on the lookout for that, everybody, as we do have some updates on his front to get into. But Robert steals his 21st bag of the year. Then we see Palacio get on with a walk, and Cuero would ground out there after Jose Butto comes in. But mind you, everybody, Palacio gets on with a walk after Klay Holmes gets absolutely screwed on the final 2 ball calls that we saw on pitch 4 and 5, if not 5 and 6, one of the two. Clear dotted strikes, different corners, and neither went in his favor. Klay Holmes got absolutely screwed by the umpire. And again, I don't know why Blue can't fathom this, and I understand that they're absolutely protected by their union, which is a continued problem in Major League Baseball, in my humble opinion. I don't care how difficult your job is per se. You are paid the big bucks for a reason, and this is an entertainment business. No one, and I mean no one, is entertained by an umpire dictating a ball game based on potential calls that they make. And for that to be how Klay Holmes' day's done after he had the deepest game of his career, what pitches pitched, that pisses me off. So let's appreciate what was greatness, in my opinion, by all accounts, and what was another sharp outing today by Mr. Klay Holmes, everybody. Take a look with it with me. Klay Holmes' final line, folks, 5.2 innings, 3 walks, 1 earned run, 3 strikeouts, 4 hits, and a 2.98 ERA now on the season. As we break down more here on Klay Holmes specifically as to what stood out so much about him as Arsenal Day, everybody, it is as follows. Klay Holmes had the entire six pitch mix working in this one that we saw, beginning with the sinker there, topping out at 38% of the Arsenal, topping out 95 on the gun, and sitting right around 94, which is his league average, his season average rather. The sweeper at 25%, topped at 83, sat right around 82. The slider topped out at 13%, was topping out at 86 miles per hour and sitting right around 85. The changeup at 13% as well, topped out 89 and sat 88. The forcing fastball at 6% of this one, only threw 6 times, so it's fitting. 95, topping out and sitting 94. And the cutter that he threw just 5 times sat right around 88 and topped out at 89. Klay Holmes, everybody, I understand that he didn't technically go 6 innings today, but Klay Holmes gets an easy 7 out of 10 from your guy Wardy today. I understand it's not the best offense he's facing, but I thought Klay Holmes was as good as you could pretty much hope for today, with the exception of him getting absolutely screwed there on some calls late in this ball game. And I understand there were some calls that went in his favor in this ball game as well, but for the ball game to end, for his outing rather, for it to end the way that it did was very, very frustrating in my opinion. So Klay Holmes deserves the credit. I'm going north of a 7 on the grade for him. Between 6.5 and 7 I think is very realistic for him. And you guys can let me know again in the comments down below, how would you grade Klay Holmes' final day? Because he did this all on 102 pitches, mind you. The most pitches he's thrown in his professional career. We're not just talking what he's done as a New York Mets so far, what he's done so far this season. He has never thrown more pitches than 102, what I believe he did today for this Mets team. So I'll appreciate that for what is Klay Holmes. Not your sharpest outing, but you got the job done, baby, and we're going to take that for what is. Continue to let me know your guys' thoughts in the chat and the comments down below. How would you grade Klay Holmes' final line today on a scale of 1 to 10? But as we get back into breaking down this 2-1 walk-off victory here for the Amazons, everybody, before we continue on, I did just want to give a huge shout-out real quick, as I mentioned to you earlier as well. So bear with me just 1 second, everybody, because I want to give a massive shout-out to our awesome friends here at SeatGeek, because SeatGeek has you covered for all of your ticketing needs, folks, and especially if you guys want to hit the ballpark the way that I've already attended 5+ games already this season. SeatGeek is what's helping making it happen. And guys, SeatGeek not only has you covered with Mets tickets, could be Knicks, EC UCF tickets. Maybe you want to head there game 4 there in Indy. You're feeling good about your Knickerbockers, and I know I am, after the Knicks rallied all the way back after being down to what felt like at least 20 that we saw in the third yesterday. They had a massive fourth there to win by 6 points total, 106-100. Love my Knicks out there. So whether it's Knicks tickets, Mets tickets, concert show tickets, comedy show tickets, you name it, SeatGeek with over 70,000 active events to choose from, making them the number one rated ticketing app in the game today, has you covered. And what I love so much about SeatGeek, and this is exactly why I've been utilizing their app well before they became the official the official ticketing sponsor of I can't even talk right now, of WardyNYM on the platform all season long. Thanks to you guys for utilizing our promo code. As you guys can see right here, right now, what stands out so much to me when I talk about SeatGeek has everything to do with the following, folks, because SeatGeek has really done a great job with how you can locate your tickets. As you guys see here, you will see on a scale of 1 to 10 and from red to green when evaluating your ticket options. And on this scale right now, as you see north 7 to 10 range in the green, that means it's a great bang for your buck, and you should absolutely go out your way to try to hammer those tickets there in the SeatGeek app. But if it's more in the 1 through 5 range and more in the red, then they're probably overpriced and you're probably spending more than you otherwise should, and you should look for tickets otherwise there in the SeatGeek app. So again, guys, SeatGeek has you covered. So if you haven't already and you want to spend some dollars on some Mets tickets but save some money in doing so, then what are you waiting for, everybody? I highly implore you all to check out our link down below utilizing our promo code WARDY10. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. And shout out once more to our great friends at SeatGeek for being an amazing sponsor here on the platform. But as we get back in this one, everybody, let's continue to break down what transpired in this 2-1 walk-off victory for the Mets, because as we got on to the bottom of the 6th inning, we would see the Mets have themselves a 2-out hit after both McNeil and Alvarez go down with groundouts. Francisco Lindor rips a single there that we would see to Mike Tauchman. Then Brandon Nimmo unfortunately strikes out swinging, and that does it there for the 6th inning. In the 7th inning, everybody, we would see Josh Rojas get on there with a 1-out walk. After the 1-out walk, here comes Huascar Brazo, and right after Brazo comes in, Josh Rojas steals just his 2nd bag of the year. Chase thankfully grounds out, and then Mike Tauchman strikes out, doing his best effort there. In the bottom of the 7th, Juan Soto gets on with a leadoff walk. Pete Alonso pokes one oppo, and the Mets have something cooking here, everybody. 2 on, no out to begin this inning. Surely the Mets are going to get some type of offense going, right? They have to. Of course they do. If they can't, we got ourselves a major problem here. But what if I told you, everybody, that how the Mets started this inning versus how they ended it was not as strong as we would have otherwise hoped to see? And Jacob, I'm doing fantastic, my man. I hope you were doing great too. Lloyd, great member of the chat as well. Kevin Kane, Alvin, Juan Diaz, D-Mac, White Mike, how we doing? We're going to talk plenty on Mauricio. Don't you worry. We're going to get into it. And Nicholas, I appreciate the kind words there. Thank you kindly for that. As we get back into this, though, everybody, Juan Soto again with the leadoff walk. Then Pete goes oppo. And listen, I'm not saying it's a big deal, but Pete Alonso going opposite field is massive for his confidence, I think, and it gives you a greater gauge as to where he's at locked in wise. Alonso, when he's at his best, spreads for all fields. And after hitting that towering 2-run shot to the left yesterday to give the Mets the ultimate victory over LA, we saw him poke one opposite field today. I'm very encouraged by that, and you guys should be too. That was Alonso's lone hit today, but it certainly was a productive one as he's still batting there with over 900 OPS and just under 300 average on the season. But here comes the relievers then for Starling Marte, who then grounds into a force out. So you got runners on the corners and a less than 2 out. All the Mets need is a sac fly, and they've tied this ball game 1-1. Instead, Brett Beatty grounds out. Tyron Taylor then gets on with a walk, and bases are juiced with 2 outs for Jeff McNeil. And Jeff McNeil ultimately strikes out on called strikes. And what was most frustrating is that while I would have liked to see McNeil take the bat off his shoulders for pitch 4, the final pitch of the at-bat here that we saw, I didn't like the fact that pitch 3 was so down and away, 2 balls completely out of the zone, a completely botched call that otherwise would have changed the complexion potentially of that at bat, and maybe the Mets score runs there. So again, another day where the ump show is sadly too pronounced and it's hurting this Mets team in the process. Regardless, McNeil goes down. The Mets yet again do not produce with runners in scoring position. Then we get to the 8th inning as Andrew Benintendi gets on there for the 2nd time today, this time with a walk. Then we see Robert fly out, and then after that we would see Jose Castillo come in for Huascar Brazo, and after walking Austin Slater there, the former, I want to say, San Francisco Giant, Cincinnati Bred, Slater's been all over the place, Edgar Quero would strike out swinging. So shout out to the towering 6'6" big filled out man, and Jose Castillo there, the southpaw that he is, striking out Edgar to end the inning unscathed. In the bottom of the 8th inning, we would see who gets the party started. Francisco Alvarez gets the party started, everybody. And this is important. Like I told you guys, you need a guy like Alvy to have these kind of hits to not only keep the confidence going, but also to get the party started for the Mets offensively. And he did exactly that. Alvin, thank you so much for the membership. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you kindly. And Charlie, thank you for the kind words too. I really do appreciate it. And guys, thank you. Very kind of that. You guys are being sweet. Is it because we're just happy that's not too late of a ball game to break down a victory? Maybe that's it today. I'm not sure, but I appreciate you guys gassing me up on this fine Monday. Oh, look at me blushing out here. Alvarez then with a single to kickstart this inning. Now we saw pull to the left side. Then he's pulled for Luis Angel Acuna. And here goes back to the donation from earlier from my guy for donating on the Acuna front and kind of the impact that he makes. And is he being hurt by not getting consistent playing time? And you tell me, because Acuna comes in to pinch run and Lindor strikes out swinging. Brandon Nimmo goes out with a single, which you love to see. Poking one there that we see pull to the right side to Talkman. Then Juan Soto has a quality at bat and gets a nice sac fly to left to Michael A. Taylor. Michael A. Taylor, very good outfielder, but Michael A. Taylor is not going to throw out the fastest man alive. Cue Seth Rogen. If you guys know what I'm referring to, when Seth Rogen is literally holding his knees like this, bent like this. He's like, I can't do it. He's the fastest man alive from Superbad. If you guys know that movie reference, you're an absolute G, because that's one of the best all times without question. And that's exactly how I feel every man, woman, mother, father, daughter, sister feels as the opposition when they see Luis Angel Acuna on the base pass. Because unless Acuna has a mental error where he gets picked off a base, Buddy is going home at some point, and you can't stop it. And in the case of Juan Soto going opposite field, he makes that a reality as Acuna comes in, and that ties the ball game there 1-1. Now, to answer the question about Acuna's sporadic playing time, there's no denying that as a young developmental player, you're naturally going to be hindered a bit by not getting consistent playing time. And here's where we have a little bit of a balance between wanting to give the kids the keys, but also knowing that this is a championship-seeking Mets team in 2025. So you're going to ride the hot hands. And if the hot hands mean that Jeff McNeil has a hot week that limits more playing time for Acuna, so be it. The same way that Brett Beatty and Vientos both ball out, both say offensively and defensively, it's really hard not to justify them being in there. And that naturally kind of straps your ability with Acuna as to how much output you get from him on an everyday basis. But I think a game like this was encouraging for Acuna, and I would love to see him back, obviously, in the starting lineup for good chunks of this week. Because listen, there's no better time for Acuna to be getting more consistent playing time than against these teams on paper. How he performs, well, obviously, we'll find out sooner rather than later. But I think today was a nice little confidence boost for him and a step in the right direction, because he, again, does this in his sleep. He's just so good at running the bases. And once he locks in more on that and is not as aggressive to the point of getting picked off at times, Acuna could very well be as good as his brother, in my opinion, at least on the stolen base front. He might not tap in the powers consistently as Ronald, and that's perfectly fine. But if Buddy can be anything close to what his brother is on the stolen base front, and we already know he is, then I think the Mets have something special there. We would see Alonso intentionally walked there by Steve Wilson. Then Starling Marte is hit by the pitch as the Mets still, yes, lead all of Major League Baseball in hit by pitches, at least out of the National League. And Brett Beatty lines one out and had Gary Cohen, had everybody thinking it's an absolute nuke of a bomb. I not for a second thought it was a home run. I knew it was dying off as soon as it hit off the bat, and it's an easy fly out there to Mike Tauchman. But again, I don't know what it is about Gary and others. Maybe it's just the sound off the bat, because Beatty has just absolutely decimated baseballs. That is important. But this was only hit, at 92 miles per hour. It's not like that this was smoked like north of 105 to 110, the way that Beatty certainly has this year. But regardless, Beatty flies out there 321 feet, and then we get set for the ninth inning. In the ninth inning, here comes Edwin Sugar Diaz, who after getting quick outs on Sosa and Rojas, allows a walk to Chase. After that, Mike Tauchman strikes out swinging, because of course he does, on 3 pitches on that disgustingly good slider that we saw nice down and in there, got him biting on 90-mile-per-hour gas, and that does it there for the ninth, everybody. And who gets the party started in the bottom of the ninth? It is the same exact man. I know I just realized I'm slightly out of focus, so let's go ahead and try to fix this quick. There we go. Okay, I think we're good. Tyrone Taylor. Can we just take a moment to appreciate Tyrone Taylor? I really feel like we need to take a moment to appreciate Tyrone Taylor, because Tyrone Taylor is a guy that many did not think much of when the Mets first acquired him a year ago with Adrian Hauser, the man that obviously torched the Mets today on the opposing end, in that trade with the Brewers, pretty much as a salary dump at the time for Milwaukee. The Mets didn't give up anything of substance in return for the most part, but Tyrone was always deemed as that true fourth outfielder type and kind of nothing more, nothing less. That's about it. But what if I told you that since we saw Jose Siri go down with injury, Tyrone Taylor has kind of been that guy? He really has been, guys. And after Tyrone Taylor leads off the ninth inning here, mind you, leads off the inning with an absolute rope of a double that we see, Tyrone Taylor now is batting .250 with a just under 700 OPS. So give credit where credit's due. Again, TT isn't going to be anything sexy, but he's going to be a true ball player. And as we know, Tyler Zuber loves to call all Mets players, he's an absolute dog. D-A-W-G exclamation point. Underline. That is how I feel about Tyrone Taylor. And it's not just offensively. It feels like he does something every game as of late. A key hit there to either tie the ball game, the way that he did there when I was in attendance in that 13-inning disaster class a couple days ago against the Dodgers, or it's just flashing the leather, making some of the best highlight reel catches, throwing out runners like he did on Mookie Betts yesterday. Again, TT is falling in a similar category to Luis Angel Acuna right now, or even if he's not necessarily producing offensively, he appears to be making something happen on an every game basis. So that's been what feels like the case for the vast majority of the month when the Mets have had successful ball games. Tyrone Taylor has found himself right in the thick of it in ways that you didn't maybe initially expect. So give credit where credit's due there. Tyrone Taylor is having himself a month, and that's absolutely fantastic to see. TT, as we love to call him there, well, I hope and I truly pray that he continues looking as good as he is right now, because Taylor gets his 7th double of the season. Then another intentional walk, this time to Jeff McNeil, puts and sets it up for Luis Torrens's first at-bat of the day. And I tweeted right before this on X that I would love to see Torrens, kind of walk off this ballgame with a bomb. That'd be nice, just saying. And I said that before the inning even began, because I knew Torrens would at least, at minimum, be the final batter of the inning at worst, right? If the first two were out, because he was coming in as a pinch hitter then for Alvarez, who's pinch ran by Acuna and half an inning ago. I can't even talk. Half inning ago, or whatever it was. Torrens then gets on with a single. No one scores, but it's bases loaded, no out for the Mets. And who's coming up to step up? I got sunshine on a cloudy day. And you know you're cooked. You're cooked. That might be a happy-go-lucky song, but I'm telling you, anytime that you hear those lyrics and anytime you hear My Girl, it is the equivalent of knowing that your world has completely crashed down because you're not going to win the ball game. The Mets certainly are. Francisco Lindor, who again has been Mr. Clutch for this team more than anyone else the past calendar year, steps up yet again. No hesitation, rips a nice deep fly ball to right. That brings in the runner from third promptly without an issue, and the Mets go on to win and walk this one off by a final score of 2-1, everybody. And what I love so much, what I really, really love so much about this victory is mainly the fact that the Mets were pretty underwhelming for a good chunk of this ball game, but they got a nice little life, a nice little spice to carry over into tomorrow. I think this would have been a far more underwhelming loss for this Mets team, in my opinion. Underwhelming win, rather, if they got the 2 runs early and then nothing happened for the remainder of the ball game. I love to see the boys rally back, and this is yet another game. It feels like the Mets have rallied back in each of their past 4 games, at least, guys. Every game of this homestand, the Mets have rallied back after being down, but in only 3 of those 4 games have they won the games now, because in game 1, the only game I attended, they lost in extras, but that was when they were still down at one point, 3 runs entering that 9th inning. Then we saw game 2 against the Dodgers. They were losing 2-0. They still come back to win comfortably. They were losing 1-0 yesterday. They come back to win big time. Today, same applies. They're down 1-0. Doesn't matter. They come back and step up, clutch up when they need to most. And even though the Mets certainly have their issues with runners in scoring position, as they themselves today, we saw go a whopping 1 for 7 with 10 left on base. So yeah, they're still absolutely horrendous with runners in scoring position. So I'm not looking at this view, this win as like, oh my goodness gracious, the boys are locked to win the World Series now. But what I will tell you is that you need to take a ball game like this, especially when you weren't getting consistent production offensively, the same way that I think you also need to reevaluate things a bit more, right? Again, a win is awesome. A win's a win, and we'll gladly take that every single day of the week and on Sundays, or in this case, Monday, rather, Memorial Day. But in the case of the Mets, what is one thing that's very important? It's to make sure that they can find consistency when clutching up. And Juan Diaz, thank you so much for chiming in. I appreciate that. Let's see, over and over again. Where's Taylor's double? Barbara, calm down, Barbara. You got to realize that's easier said than done to get everything chopped up for you and then get the show going. If I don't have the double for you, I don't have the double for you. You can go watch it somewhere else. And again, thank you so much for watching. We'll get through this, Barbara. I promise. I pinky promise. We'll make sure that we have everything Tyrone Taylor next time for you. So that way we made sure that Barbara didn't get upset out of the thousands of people watching. Locking that in for next time. But guys, to get back in here, the Mets need to get more consistency going. And now I think we've all reached a point where this is going on, going back to last season, even when they had their great success and throughout the regular year. What was one thing that was true? They still were fluctuating in their clutch ability. They clutched up a lot last year. The Mets felt like a team that as they entered, especially the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, that they were losing by 1, 2, 3+ runs. You can never count them out because they were a magical ball club and they had so many things clicking and firing on all full cylinders. And a key part of that puzzle last year on the clutchness was not just Francisco Lindor and not just Mr. OMG and Jose Iglesias, but it was also most certainly Mark Vientos. And now that Mark Vientos is a guy that has had an up and down start to his 2025 season, what many could argue as his true sophomore year, it's going to be really important to see how Vientos starts to get more in a groove. What is his playing time looking like? Is he getting consistent reps at third, or is he getting more reps at DH? Because at DH, I know the bat is going to be fine, but defensively, that may throw things off a bit more, as we saw him again have another very unfortunate error on the first ball that went his way there to the hot corner yesterday. So the Mets need to get things figured out, and I wonder how much personnel would change that. When you look at Eric Chavez and when you look at Jeremy Barnes, and I understand it's natural for fans after some underwhelming games to turn to the coaching staff right away. Everyone's like, it starts with the coaches. I'm here to tell you a lot of how a team is operating goes so much more into the players themselves than the coaches in today's game. But in the case of the Mets and their specific hitting philosophy, there is no denying that there is a glaring sore thumb right now that's sticking out, and it is their lack of clutchness. And the only way to get that remedied is not just a collective team effort where they really start to rally and get things going in unison, headlined by Juan Soto actually performing like Juan Soto and not just being a shell of himself, which has been a case for the good majority of the season at this point. It's finally seeing those balls start to fall down there instead of, they're always being sack flies instead of a bomb, among other things. As things heat up and get better into summer, I firmly believe the numbers will also translate to a degree with this Mets team. But that's also wishful thinking. And I think we have all went through long enough, and I've seen long enough sample size to suggest if this is personnel-based, if this is more on the coaching end, there should be some type of change sooner rather than later. Because you will not see, and I'm going to go on a limb and say this, guys, so let me know if I'm right or wrong for this. I feel pretty confident that you're not going to see a team in the New York Mets with the current offensive statistics that they have in clutch situations and in runners of scoring position find themselves in a deep playoff run getting back to the NLCS when there is no team in current position that's going to have a deep run this year with similar numbers. With the exception of the Texas Rangers is very underwhelming team OPS in the month of May with runners of scoring position, but we don't know obviously what's going to happen with the Rangers throughout the entire course of the 162. Their pitching has been very rock solid, headlined by Jacob deGrom obviously, but their offense has been very Jacob deGrom Mets-esque. They have not been able to score consistently for him as much as they would hope. And with the Rangers, they have a lot of things fluctuating on the offensive end. That's just why they called up one of their top outfield prospects a day or so ago. But offensively, the Mets have all the pieces here. You look at this 1 through 9 right now, and again, we're going to look at it one more time, everybody. I want to know your thoughts about this. Let's start here with the hitting once more. You guys see this is how the ball game ended. Just take a look with me, everybody. You see it as follows. Lindor, 272 with an 802 OPS, right? Brandon Nimmo, 2 for 4 in this matchup, 219 average, 683 OPS. Juan Soto with a 233 average and 770 OPS is just not going to cut it. Alonso, 291, 925, far from the problem. Marte, 227, 673. Beatty, 240 with a 746. Tyrone Taylor, 250 with a 669. McNeil, 221 with a 775. Alvarez, 1 for 3 with a 236 and a 627. Acuna there, 260 with a 622. And Torrens with a 275 and a 776. When you look at this Mets team, they currently only have 2 batters that are at an 800 OPS or higher. That's no bueno. And that alone is something that the Mets collectively have to get their heads out of their you-know-whats to figure out. It's not just a one-player problem, it's a collective problem. And once the Mets start to click in unison, that's usually where we really see the offense burst out on the scene and just look like a team that's like a team possessed. Like they're going to take on anyone without a problem, and that's what it's going to be. Because we've seen them perform like that. And the Mets' first homestand of the year when they swept all those games between the Cardinals and the Phillies and won the first seven games there after after the Marlins series was absolutely magical. You'd love to see that. But they definitely need to get things on a more consistent basis, and this has been a broken record. If there is one Achilles heel the Mets have at this point in the season, 2 months in, it is without question the same thing that we have said since day one. So if there's one thing that's comforting, at least we've known this entire time what the issue has been, and the Mets have still been able to prevail a lot of the times, even when they've had said issues. The problem, however, is that we've been calling this out since literally the first game of the season against the Astros, and not a single effing thing has changed. That alone is concerning because the Mets have not made the proper adjustments. And this is the same Mets team and Carlos Mendoza that over the past week said that, okay, we're going to have a more stern meeting should these underwhelming numbers continue in these situations. Well, did that meeting happen? It felt like it happened. If it didn't happen, it sure as shit needs to happen, because you're going to have a very tough schedule after this week. And you got LA in LA for 4 games. You got a big West Coast trip. And again, you got a gauntlet there in June and July. Things started lining up a little bit more as you get towards the end of the season. But throughout the summer, the Mets have as difficult of a schedule as any team in baseball. So now is imperative when you're playing the lesser teams, the same way that the Phillies just absolutely steamrolled the Athletics, the Pirates, and the Rockies, is the same way the Mets need to go out and take advantage and beat the absolute teeth in on these White Sox and the Rockies. And it's a time to stat pad too as well. If you're Juan Soto and you're these guys and say you've been kind of underwhelming with your play, no better time to finally get in a groove and really start to get these numbers up than against these lesser opponents where they have some of the worst pitching staffs in Major League Baseball. Otherwise, the Mets are going to find themselves in a category just like what they did. And do you guys remember what they did in the Pittsburgh Pirates series? The Mets won the Pittsburgh Pirates series, but they played like shit throughout the entire series. If it wasn't for their pitching, they would have lost at least 2 out of 3. And they lost the series finale, which was a big gut punch. But the problem is, again, it was the Pirates, the effing Pirates. So that is what I'm going to leave you with, everybody. They have to get more consistency going. And unless they do that, it is hard to see them getting where they want to be this year, because these numbers will rear its head sooner rather than later if they haven't already. So guys and gals, I would like to thank you all so much, everyone that chimed in and watched the show live or on replay. Please make sure to hit that like and subscribe on your way out. If you guys could help us get a north of 400 likes at any point for all of our live and reoccurring viewers, that would really mean a lot. Ethan, thank you so much for chiming in. Great members, Charlene, Elvin, thank you guys kindly. I really do appreciate it, guys. Again, be on the lookout as we will have more content for you guys tomorrow. We'll have a video and likely a post-game show too. Shout out to everyone that has already checked out our Wardy Day, which will be August 1st, the day after the trade deadline. It's linked down in the description. If you guys want a chance to hang out with your guy Wardy at Citi Field itself, and we're going to have more announcements on this heading into the month of June shortly and July, leading closer to the event, please make sure to check it out, everybody, and thank you so much in advance for doing so. Going to be an absolute blast hanging out with you guys at Citi Field for the first time ever for an official Wardy Day there. You're going to get pregame access on the Mets field there, on the concourse, on the warning track in particular for group photos. We're going to get a big ticket voucher, so you guys will save some money on drinks. And we're going to be sitting in a lounge section in the left field lounge, which is a lot more comfortable than their standardized seating that they currently have. So again, thank you guys again for watching. Big win for the boys. Not a sexy win, but an important one. I'll see you back here this time tomorrow, or probably later, because we have a 7 o'clock game or so. Thank you guys again. Love you all to death. Now, as always, no matter what, let's go Mets, everybody. Enjoy your evening. Peace.